Hey guys, so today I'm giving you my top tips on breastfeeding. Keep watching to find out more. Hey guys, and how you doing? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm talking about all things breastfeeding. It's a lot to cover, so I don't know if it's going to be split over a couple of episodes, but Bella and I have had such a difficult journey with breastfeeding. I can't even tell you. It's only probably been since she was about 5 months, maybe 5.5 months, that we've really started to get into the groove of breastfeeding. And I have exclusively breastfed her. That was a choice that I made. There was so many points though where I didn't think we were going to do it. We just kept hitting hurdle after hurdle. We eventually found out that Bella's palate was quite flat instead of rounded like one that you or I would have, and so it was really hard for her to latch onto my breasts. So we had a lot of issues with her latch, but then my boobs got really engorged. I had blocked ducts. I had a lot of problems, and the shape of them she just couldn't really get a hold of. I can't even give you an exact number. We saw so many people and spoke to so many mums and dads just to get some guidance and some help, because we were really just at a loss, and every feed was just tense and I hated it. I hated the idea of sitting there for an extended period of time. I was just in so much pain when she'd try and latch. It was awful. I would just cry. Matt would sit with me and, you know, he would get stressed because I was stressed, and then Bella could feel that I was so tense, and it was just not good, was it? It wasn't good. But we've come such a long way, and now, I mean, she's just turned 7 months. We're still going, and it is so much better than it was. A lot of that has to do with the fact that she's actually feeding a lot less, and she's on 3 solid meals a day. But man, it was tough going in the beginning. She had so much trouble that she actually ended up in hospital at one point because we just couldn't get her to feed at all, and she got really severe jaundice when she was a few days old. So we were in hospital the first time for a few days with that, and that is how we kind of knew that we had a problem. It was tough going, wasn't it? We saw lots of different people, and they tried so many different techniques, and we did so many different things, and you know, some of it worked and some of it didn't. We found an option that worked for us, and that was taking little bits from everybody and giving it a crack. And then we came up with our own little method. So stick around guys if you want to listen to my tips, and like I said, this may be a couple of parts, I don't know yet. Depends how much information we have to give, but it's a topic I'm pretty passionate about, so I'd say I'm going to talk a little bit. My first tip is positioning. So, oh man, it's so important, but it's also, you can spend a lot of time doing it, and it can be quite, you can overthink it. With Bella, I feed her both sides, and then if she's still hungry, I'll offer her the first side, and then, you know, go on like that. And then when she's due to feed in a few hours, I will go and feed her on the side that she fed last at. So like if at 9 a.m. she did right and then left, then at 12 p.m. I'd do left and then right, if that makes sense. So I tried like putting a hair tie on my wrist so that I could keep track of where she was up to, but then I couldn't remember if it was what she did last or what she was up to. So that lasted all of a day, not even. But I keep a record of everything on my phone. So position wise, I always just feed her in the cradle position. So like I just hold her like this, she just feeds. I know that there's the football hold, so that's like when they're back here, their heads sort of facing up. I've had consultants that we've gone to see that have sort of like just thrown her on me, like her body's been like this way down me. I used to actually lay down on the bed with her, especially early days during recovery and really sleep deprived, and when her feeds would go for so long, I would lay on the bed and do the side position, and we did that for quite a while, and it worked quite well for us, even though she wasn't latched very well, so it probably didn't work very well for us. But now I just always do the cradle hold, and surprisingly enough, for myself anyway, I can pretty much do it in most places. I can sit up in bed and do it, I can do it on the couch, I can do it sitting on the floor. I definitely couldn't do that early days. I had to be like propped up on the couch or with my feet on the floor, but over time we've been able to get a bit more comfortable with it. You're also not meant to be really tense or anything like that. With everyone that we saw, they all had different ways of holding, and even if it was the cradle hold, it was different angles that you put your elbow, and then different positions for your hand to be on Bub's back and stuff like that. It was so confusing. And then in the hospital where we were, they really pushed the Thompson method, which is where there's 4 points of contact on your breast, so nose, chin, and both cheeks touching your breast while Bub's feeding. We just never got it. We never did, and they pushed it so much. couch. And, you know, every time I'd feed her, I'd try and look for that position and we just couldn't get it. And it wasn't until we started seeing more people and trying to get more help that other people had different methods that we could try and experiment with. But there are so many different types of positions out there, and it's honestly just whatever works for you and your baby, because there's all these people that have studied it and I'm sure that they're great at what they do, but it comes down to you and your baby. And I mean, with Bella, it was her palate as to why she couldn't latch and the shape of my breast. So what are you gonna do about that? Like, no matter how many methods are out there, we just had to take little bits from every person that we saw and every method that we read about. We watched so many videos and all these different things, and we just had to take little bits if we wanted to keep going at it and find what worked for us. And eventually we did, but it took time, and positioning I think is really, really important. And certainly in hospital, they just pushed this one position, but just know that there are a lot out there, and if a different one works for you, that's okay. So guys, my next tip is about burping. There are multiple positions that you can burp a baby. So you can have them like this and have them facing down and their legs either side of you. Bella's in the other room. I need to really be showing you with her. So Matt always did that one when she was younger and would just pat her back. The other one is to sit them up on your legs and just sort of hold their chest like this and burp the back of them like that. And we did that a lot with Bella when she was younger, just because we found it was the best at getting all the gas and that out. So she is what they call a wet burper. So she vomits a lot. She's a lot better now that she's on solids, but man, those early days, we were really concerned. And being in hospital a couple of times with her, we would ask a lot of the doctors and specialists that we saw just to make sure that it was okay, because we hadn't really read anything about it. We hadn't been told anything about it. And they were like, yeah, she's just a wet burper, it's fine. I would only be worried if she did 6 vomits that were the size of like an A4 sheet of paper. That's when we should be worried. That's what they told us. I mean, that was a lot for us, thinking that. We spend a lot of time burping her. I generally burp her upright with her over my shoulder like this, and I put a burp cloth over my shoulder and then have her up here. We burp her between 15 and 30 minutes every time because she is a wet burper. From what I know, you do not have to do that with every baby. Some babies don't vomit at all or don't have any wet burps, and they just have a bit of gas and that's all. But with Bella, she has to burp. Otherwise, she just gets a really bad bellyache and she'll vomit in bed. So yeah, burping is just so essential. I can't even stress it enough, because they've got all little gas bubbles. So the padding movement on their backs just helps move it all around, so it either comes up or it goes through them and comes out their butt. But it's very important, and we've certainly noticed that the times where we're a bit lax on it, so we might only do it for like 5 or 10 minutes, we know about it, so we have to burp her really well every time. Thankfully it's a little bit less now that she's on solids, that she's feeding and everything, and we've found that since she has been on solids, she is actually vomiting a lot less, which has been just such a relief, because it's just awful. Like watching her just bring up the milk all the time is just horrible. So I'm hoping by the time she's 12 months, it's really died off a lot. If it hasn't, I'm probably gonna look into it a bit further. I have read that some babies can actually be, I think some babies can be allergic to breast milk, or they've got some sort of a reaction to it. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if that's Bella. The other thing I sometimes wonder is if it's because of when she was in hospital in the early days, she had tubes in her stomach and the first one coiled, and it was really after that I noticed the burping. I don't think I really noticed it before that. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know what it's from. I don't know what the cause is, or if it's just her, because I know that there are a lot of babies that are wet burpers and that do vomit. But yeah, burping is so important, especially for us. So my next tip is getting blockages or mastitis. You can get either or. I got blocked ducts multiple times in the newborn sort of stages, the early days, and it was quite easy for me to tell. I had sort of lumps all around my breast and even like underneath, and I could feel them. So I would just constantly try and like massage it out, especially while Bella was feeding. But then I'd also have quite warm showers and just sort of put the shower nozzle wherever the lump was and just try and massage it out, because it was uncomfortable and you can feel that it was there. And I had it to the point where like it was waking me up at night. So like if I was laying on my side and there was some blockages, like it would wake me up and I'd have to roll over. And the blockages were always on a side that Bella couldn't quite latch onto properly. After she would feed, I would just be in a lot of pain and discomfort. So massaging your breasts when you've got the blocked ducts is really good to do, especially in the shower before you feed. So it's kind of a pain to have to get in the shower, massage it, and then feed Bub. I need someone else in the house to watch the baby. But I did that quite a few times and found it useful. But if I was at home by myself, or if Matt was asleep, I would sometimes get a heat pack and just put it in the microwave for a little bit and then put it on top, just to sort of try and loosen the milk and the blockage. And that way, while Bella was feeding, the heat pack would be there, and then I'd also massage, sort of like go between the two, and that worked. One of the health clinic nurses thought that I had mastitis at one point because my boobs got super red. I don't even know how far in. It must have been like 5 weeks. I didn't really feel super sick, but I definitely had like the cracked nipples. There were heaps of blocked ducts. I had like a little bit not feeling well, but generally with mastitis, it's like you've got flu-like symptoms, like you'll have aches and pains, or you'll get fevers or like shivers and stuff like that. Mastitis is like it's a block up. Generally, it's caused by blocked ducts, or there's bacteria that's gone between baby's mouth and your nipple, and it's sort of created a bacteria within your breast. You can get it treated. There's medication that you can take for it. The health clinic nurse recommended us to go straight to the doctor, get it checked out, because I was still having trouble with Bella latching. We still were not feeding properly, and so we got it checked out. She said it wasn't quite mastitis, like you'd know, because it would be quite painful. I, with breastfeeding, have found that I actually have a really high pain threshold. We actually think it was, but my pain threshold was quite high, but I was able to just do things naturally to try and get rid of it. The other thing with blocked ducts, which a friend of mine told me about, and it worked for her and myself, is that you can get like a container and fill it with warm water and Epsom salt, but you need like half a cup. You need quite a bit for like a small container or a bowl, and to put your boob in it and basically massage the milk out, and the salt will help draw it out. You know when it's come out because it will sort of explode into the water, but that's another thing to try if it's quite bad and you want to do something natural as well. I also found with my blocked ducts, so I got them in both sides and then they'd go away, and then I kind of got them again throughout probably the first 2 months. Definitely, maybe even a bit longer, but I always found when I was pumping, I tended to get more blocked ducts, and I think it's because when a baby's latched and they're sucking, they get the full drainage, like they're getting it from everywhere, whereas the pump is not as effective. And so I definitely found that the days and the times where I was pumping, the next few days are when I noticed that I would get blocked ducts. So I wasn't expressing every day. I would sort of experiment and do a week or two without any expressing, and then they would sort of settle down and not come back until I would start expressing again. So that's another fun thing that I found anyway. It doesn't happen to everybody, thankfully, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for, especially in the early days, because it can be quite painful. So guys, if you got blocked ducts or mastitis, let me know how you dealt with it in the comments down below. If you went through and saw a doctor, if you got prescribed any medication, or if you did things naturally, please let me know, because I would love to know for the next baby. Okay guys, so there are so many types of breast pumps out there. So I used initially a Tommy Tippy one. It was a base model, quite cheap, and Matt sort of ran to the store on day 3 when Bella was here, and that's when I had my engorged boobs. So we didn't know, we hadn't done any research into breast pumps. It's not an avenue that we thought we were going to go down or anything like that, but he spoke to one of the ladies at the shop, and she tried to sell him the top of the range breast pump. We didn't think we were going to need it or use it for very long, so he got the base model. Oh man, it did not work. You know, there's a lot of people out there that use the Tommy Tippy ones and have had great success. I didn't. I think a lot of it was to do with the shape of my boobs while they were engorged. The teats, it was just sort of like squeezing down my nipple instead of like pulling, like drawing the milk out like this, like as if a baby was drinking from it. It was like squeezing the nipple, and my boobs were so sore. They were so big and they were so red and raw, and the whole motion of it was so painful. I pumped for like an hour to an hour and a half, and I got 20 mils out. It was so deflating. I just remember sitting on this couch and I was in tears. My mum was over. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and you know, Matt was stressed. We couldn't get Bella to feed, and it was just awful. So having a good pump, I think, is actually essential. I didn't prior to Bella being born, but now I just think it's such a must. And I didn't realize, but you can actually hire out hospital grade pumps, and that is what we actually ended up doing. So we hired out the Medela Symphony. You can get get them from hospitals, you can hire them out from chemists, you can do them online as well and hire them out from places. But man, it was a game changer. We had to buy the parts, so like the tubing and attachment that sits on my breast and everything. So it was a little bit more money, but so worth it. I didn't even care. I think in like 15 minutes, I got 150 mils. I can't even tell you the difference. It was insane. And one little hack that I found on Facebook was that I actually put one of Bella's baby socks over the bottle, and for some reason it like increased the supply as well. I don't know if it's the temperature of the bottle or if it's like because you're not looking at it. I actually don't know how it works, but I found that whenever I did do it, my supply that I would get without it actually did go up a little bit. So a little bit of a hack there. But definitely the Medela was amazing. So I had that out for a month. I thought I was going to extend it, but I didn't. So this was actually when she was like 2 months old. I didn't get it till then. But we, in the meantime, bought the Medela. Can't even think what it was. I'll put a picture up here and I'll leave a link in the description down below of which one I did actually get. And it was so good. Not as good as the Medela Symphony, which was like the top of the range hospital grade one, but so much better than the Tommy Tippy. I was still able to get heaps of milk out and it wasn't painful, and it did the whole like motion like this as if a baby was sucking, and not this as if they were like chomping and not doing anything. So you can get single and double breast pumps. I was going to get a double because that's what I used with the hospital one, but the lady at the shop sort of said we didn't really need it. It's more if you've got twins or you're doing it at work, so you need it to be really quick and efficient, which I didn't need that. So I just got a single one and it worked so well. I haven't used it in ages. I was using it quite a lot. So if she would feed in the night and only do one side and fall asleep, I would stay up and express the other side just so they were both getting used, and so my milk supply was staying up. And then I would always express in the morning, just when my boobs were the most full, so that I could freeze some so that we had some away, because we had a few events and that to go to where Bella was going to be babysat. But it was just a game changer. And like I said, I haven't expressed in quite a while, and I haven't really felt like I needed to because she's feeding so much less. She's on 3 solid meals a day now, and if I'm going anywhere, she's coming with me. And we've been in lockdown, so I haven't had to go anywhere. But I mean, I'm going to keep it for the next bub and bubs that will come after. But I definitely going into the next pregnancy, I will have probably purchased before the birth. I think I will hire out one of the hospital grade ones, because I just think having it there when you go through the engorgement stage, I think it would have been a little bit different for Bella and myself's experience if I had have had a really good working pump, because I may have been able to just release a bit of milk and she might have actually been able to latch on. You know, some nights where she was waking up a lot, then, you know, the next night Matt would do the nighttime feed, so like before she would go to bed, and he would give her a bottle. And it was a way for Matt and Bella to bond, which was really, really nice. And that's something that we both wanted for, you know, all of us. But he was able to do that and I was able to have a bit of a break. I would still express at that point, so my supply was still being used, if that makes sense. But that's just what we found worked for us. So I did that for quite a while. I probably stopped doing it around the 4-month mark, and I had like quite a large stash in the freezer, so I felt it was okay to stop. And I just haven't needed to use it. I haven't felt like there's been a purpose. She's been really good, and we've actually gotten to a point where I'm enjoying breastfeeding Bella, and it's generally not painful. And I actually didn't think we would ever get to that point. I didn't even think I'd still be breastfeeding her at 7 months. So I mean, I'm quite chuffed with the whole thing now, but certainly I wasn't, and I didn't think that we would get to this point. And if I didn't have the breast pumps, I don't think we would have got to this point. I think I just would have switched, because I just needed a bit of release. And even like, I know some people that do a little bit of pumping and then will put the baby on, because the letdown might take a little bit of time, or if they've got an oversupply, they'll just pump a little bit out so that bub doesn't get like, ooh, too much milk, but they'll just let some out and then bub can go on, and it just helps with the latch a little bit too. So that's another way that it can come in handy. So guys, let me know in the comments down below which pump worked best for you, if you did use one at all, and what you found with your experiences. So my next bit of advice is to have a comfortable feeding area. So I had a rocking chair and it was just not comfortable. It was really hard to get out of holding Bella, especially in the middle of the night. I think I used it once or twice and I couldn't use it again. I used to just feed her either on the bed or on the couch here. A couple of months ago, I got a chair from Aldi, and it can be either a rocking chair or just a normal standard chair, which I like that you have the option to do that. So I have it set up as just a normal chair in her nursery. I don't really use it as much as what I was hoping. I mainly just use it in the middle of the night for her feeds. Otherwise I just come and sit on the couch because that's where we generally are, sort of in the kitchen or living room areas. But I think it's so important to have a good setup, somewhere that you want to go and actually feed your baby that is comfortable for you. If it's not comfortable, you're going to be tense and not good. The other thing that I always have is I always have water with me. I find personally I get super dehydrated. I used to, I don't have anymore, but I used to always have snacks just because the feeds would go for so long. So I would always try and have like some crackers or something around. Sometimes I would have a book there. I would always have my phone because I record all her feeds on my phone, but just if I needed to like use it to zone out. I always had minimal light if it was nighttime because I didn't want Bella to wake up and be like, ooh, it's daytime. It's not daytime, it's nighttime. I used to always, and I still do, have minimal light. I've just got a salt lamp in her bedroom and that's what we use as a light. But I generally just use my phone light, but have it turned, have my phone upside down so you can't see the light because now she's like, ooh, what's that? I can't feed her in front of the TV. I know a lot of people do sit in front of the TV and breastfeed, especially during the night, or they'll put a movie on or something like that. I can't do that with her ever since day dot. She sees the reflection on this wall of the lights and she would just get distracted and turn around even if we had it on mute. So I have never been able to feed her with the TV on. I've never been able to watch TV with her while she's feeding, but it's actually been quite good because we don't really use it at all now because we can't. It's such a distraction for her. Even if she's feeding and looking this way, she'll see the lights bouncing off. And then I always have a blanket in case it gets cold. I never used a boppy. I know a lot of people use those breastfeeding pillows, so they sort of sit on your lap and then bub goes on top. That was a personal choice before she came. I didn't want to have one. I wanted to learn how to breastfeed her without one so that if I was out in public or if I was at somebody's home, I didn't have it with me, I'd know how to feed her without relying on it, if that makes sense. But a lot of people highly recommend them. But definitely, my tip, definitely have a comfortable feeding spot because you're going to be there for a little while. My next tip for you guys, it's not really a tip, it's also advice, and that is to ask for help. If you're struggling, if you're worried about something, if you're unsure about something, just ask, especially if you're a first-time parent. It is so hard, and even if you're not a first-time parent, every other parent that I've met that's got multiple kids has said their feeding experience, well, not just their feeding experience, every experience with each child has been so different. And that's something that I think, you know, it's such an easy thing to be told to ask for help if you need it, but when you're in that mind frame and you're so sleep deprived and you're trying to work things out, you're trying to bond with Bub and there's all these things going on, it's really hard. And I was really lucky that I had Matt because feeding was so difficult, especially in the middle of the night when, you know, I couldn't really see. I didn't want to turn the lights on because I didn't want to disturb Bella too much that she would wake up fully and then not want to go back to sleep. But for me, it was so painful when she would try to latch and I would be so tense and so stressed. So having him there, just, you know, sometimes at night he fell asleep, but he was just on the couch with me, and just having that support was just massive. And he would get Bella out of bed while I would set up. I would feed her and then typically he would burp her afterwards in the newborn days. But man, in the end, like I don't even know how many people we ended up seeing. We've seen private lactation consultants, we've seen like health clinic nurses, we've seen lactation consultants in hospital, we've spoken to GPs, and we've just taken little bits and pieces from everyone that we've seen and taken the bits that they've told us and the advice they've given us and made it work for us. So where my breastfeeding experience with Bella is now is a mix of what everyone has told us that we have seen that is, you know, professional, and then what we've learned from people who are mums themselves and what they've gone through in their journeys. While you can go to one person and they might work for you, they also might not. And so it's okay to go to another person or ask around or just take one thing that might actually be okay for you. And that's what we did. We found some lactation consultants didn't work for us, and the positions that they were trying to get us to do, they just didn't work. Like it was just awkward and uncomfortable, and that's okay because eventually we found something that did work for us, but we had to ask for help first and we had to get resourceful with what we were doing. So the other thing is that in Australia, the Australian Breastfeeding Association has a 24-hour hotline that you can call and you can ask for tips, you can ask for advice, you can ask for things to do. Even though they're not actually in the room with you physically, you can still get some sort of support and some sort of guidance. So I will leave their contact number and their website down below. So So if you are in Australia and you are having problems, definitely check them out. But I also think you need to have a good network around you and a really good support. I think that's super important because you need to feel comfortable to be able to ask for help, and it's not an easy thing to do at all. So guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you've learned something, and we'll see you next week. Bye guys.